Hello everyone! Today I wanted to share with you some Star Wars comics that you may have never even heard of. Star Wars Manga Black and Star Wars Manga Silver. These comics that sound like they're named after Pokemon games were published by Tokyopop in 2006, and they were never released in America. Just Japan and Europe to my knowledge, and they have never been republished, so they are really hard to find, especially in English. I couldn't even find scans of them online. Because of their rarity, these manga are unfortunately quite expensive. You can find physical versions of them being sold, but it'll be difficult. I found these ones from eBay's UK site, so that might be a good place to start for collectors. But what are Star Wars Manga Black and Silver? This is pretty much just Star Wars tales in manga form. Basically an anthology of short comics involving different writers and artists. Are they canon? Well, no. You know how Star Wars Tales was always kind of hard to pin down, because it mixed canon comics and non-canon comics within the same issue, and barely differentiated between them? Well, the manga says flat out that these are infinities, meaning that they are non-canon within the Star Wars Legends continuity. So don't stress too hard trying to fit them into the timeline. But if you really want to, Leland Chee once said that the canon status of these comics are fuzzy, so make of that what you will. Furthermore, these books are so short that I will cover the entirety of both in this one video. Starting with the covers. You'll notice two things right away. They are both really shiny, and they both prominently feature the big guy himself, Darth Vader. Both volumes also contain a reversible Darth Vader poster, created by Japanese artists. This leads me to believe that Darth Vader might be a popular Star Wars character or something. Manga Black is the first volume, and it opens up with the story Perfect Evil, by Hiromoto Sin-ichi. I'm probably going to butcher all these names, so apologies in advance. It opens with dozens of Star Destroyers and Imperials absolutely obliterating this planet. But they might actually be needed, because it appears that they are taking on a large group of Jedi, including this very noodly looking Twi'lek. Unfortunately for them, Darth Vader reduces them to literal bloody scraps. The Jedi are very outclassed here. The last survivor is a Padawan boy named Tao. The comic then cuts to the Battle of Yavin. I love Hiromoto's art style, and this might be my favorite part of the whole book. But it does not have much to do with the rest of the story. Any casual Star Wars fan knows how the Battle of Yavin played out, so it didn't really have to be included here. The important bit is what happens after. Vader returns to Coruscant after the battle. The events of Empire Issue 14, The Savage Heart, would be contradicted here, since directly after Yavin, Vader returned to Coruscant with a damaged arm in a Lambda-class shuttle. If you want to make this part fit, this scene here would have to be Vader coming back to Coruscant at a slightly later date. Anyway, Vader orders his men to find the identity of the pilot who destroyed the Death Star, and then reports to Palpatine about his failure.
Huh? What do you mean they blew up the Death Star? Oh!
Later on, Vader returns to his private tower on Coruscant, which I am delighted to report that it's designed to look like his face. Speaking of which, Vader removes his mask and it's revealed that Tao, the Padawan he confronted at the beginning of the story, is now his secret apprentice. And compared to Vader's other apprentices, their relationship is a lot more friendly, at least for a Sith Lord. Tao senses Vader actually seems happy for once, and later, when they're training, Vader demands that Tao must hate him, but the poor guy just can't hate his new adopted dad. That's the end of part 1. The story continues in Manga Silver. The next tale is Tanev 4 by Formalin. It opens a lot like the original Star Wars film, with Vader's Star Destroyer capturing the Corellian Corvette. Only when they force the door open, they get hit by smoke bombs from a mysterious individual who seems to be Leia. Only they are kicking the stormtroopers' asses with martial arts. Then it's revealed that it's not Leia, but actually Absolbar Binks, Jar Jar Binks' son, wearing the bride's outfit from Kill Bill apparently. Suffice to say, this certainly caught me off guard when I first read it. The stormtroopers start firing on him again, then even more unbelievably, Vader starts talking with Absolbar, asking why his kind fight against the Empire, and Absolbar tells him, all the while still fighting off the troopers. He tells Vader that the Empire would never take away the kindness from his comrades. Absolbar tells him that Vader could never understand what it would be like to have a wife and kid. After that comment, Vader doesn't feel like talking and force chokes Absolbar, demanding the Death Star plans. But his troopers only find unarmed Gungans. Absabar reveals that the ship they are on is not the Tantive 4, but the Tantive 5. This whole thing was just a distraction. Instead of murdering or enslaving everyone, Vader lets them go to pursue the actual ship. So nothing in this story really contradicts the EU, but the thought of all this goofiness occurring just an hour before the original trilogy is really... This seems like one of those overly silly non-canon comics from Star Wars Tales. The next story is Evil Eyes by Now. It takes place during the Battle of Coruscant. Against the wishes of their masters, 3 Padawans with frankly pretty cool designs are facing off with the droid armies in the streets. Iguni thinks back to Yoda telling him that strength is found deep within his being, and not with his ability in the Force. Back in the present, Iguni's friends, Zoe and Xiami, are critically wounded by the enemy. When all seems lost, Master Windu shows up and saves them, though he's pissed that they disobeyed and orders them to return to the temple. A little later after the battle, the heroes who rescued Chancellor Palpatine have returned. Iguni apologizes to Xiami for getting her hurt, and promises to her that he will become stronger. It's followed by a montage of life seeming to return to normal at the temple. Mace is training Iguni and keeps kicking his butt, though he does praise him for his hard work, much to his delight. Later, Iguni bumps into Anakin Skywalker and introduces himself. He asks him how he is so strong. Anakin in turn asks why he trains in the Force. Iguni says it's to protect his friends. Anakin agrees and says that's why he trains in the Force too. But as he leaves, Iguni senses a horrible darkness within the Jedi. Since this tale mainly deals with side characters, in my opinion, this story has no issues potentially fitting into the EU's continuity. Volume 1 closes with Dear Anakin by the Furry Company. Essentially, this is a short letter written to Anakin from his old friend Kitster, who has heard stories of Anakin's exploits as a Jedi and wants him to visit Tatooine sometime. There's really not a lot to this one. It could have been a bit longer. Maybe with Kitster telling Anakin about what all was going on Tatooine since he left. But whatever. That's it for Manga Black. Now moving on to Volume 2, Manga Silver. It's the continuation of Perfect Evil from Part 1. Vader wants Tau to hate him to become more powerful in the dark side, but the Stockholm Syndrome is strong with this one. Vader returns to his ship, and his men have found the identity of the Death Star pilot, Luke Skywalker. Now, this is a little bit of a contradiction, because Vader had already found out about Luke in the comic Vader's Quest, in issue 35 of Marvel Star Wars. Though you could maybe say he's just getting additional confirmation to be sure. But Vader is actually extremely excited that his child is indeed alive.
What? I have a son?
No, I said Anakin Skywalker has a son. You are Darth Vader.
I have a son! This is wonderful!
Wait.
I must see him!
Where are you going?
Back on Coruscant, since Vader is trying to get Luke to be his next apprentice, he dismisses Tau, saying he won't train him any longer, much to Tau's dismay. Palpatine gifts Vader with the Super Star Destroyer Executor. Again, this is a contradiction, because Vader should already know about the Executor, though you could say that this was Palpatine officially revealing the Super Star Destroyer to the public, and that they are playing up the ceremony for the media. Vader begins to search for Luke before Palpatine can find him, but then an R2 unit bumps into him with a message from the Emperor. Palpatine has found out about Tau, and forces Vader to cut him down. It seems to imply that Vader can't control his actions, and really doesn't want to actually hurt Tau, but he slices through him anyway. Vader takes the dying child back to his home planet Shumari. A very distraught Vader begs him not to die, and Tau tells him to stay true to himself, and don't give in to the Emperor. All of a sudden, Vader is attacked by a Tusken Raider, who was originally from the village that Anakin slaughtered. He hunted Vader for years, teaching himself to talk and fight. He's incredibly powerful in the dark side, managing to defeat the Dark Lord, and even has dual lightsabers inside his gaffy stick, which is extremely badass. And apparently this is horror from the Masters of the Terrascasi video game, which is some incredible continuity. This is why I love Star Wars so much. Before Horror can kill Vader, Tau jumps in with the last of his strength and kills the Tusken Raider. Vader buries Tau and builds him a grave. He returns to Tatooine for the first time in a while, reflecting on his pain, but now he has a new hope with his son. Between both manga volumes, Perfect Evil is clearly the main story. Do you consider the story canon within the EU? Let me know. The next tale is O Jawa Jawa by Hitoshi Ariga, a more lighthearted comic that actually has zero dialogue. It's a little hard to follow, especially since all the Jawas look alike, but it follows this one Jawa who is trying to repair a droid, but is unable to, or so he thinks. The rest of his friends laugh at him, and this upsets him so much that he destroys all the droids in a rampage. He gets scolded by the Elder Jawa, as they're not able to sell anything. Later on in Expedition, the Jawas come across stormtroopers surrounding a downed X-Wing pilot. The stormtroopers execute the pilot and move on, leaving the X-Wing wreckage for the delighted Jawas. The Jawa protagonist is the one tasked to fix the X-Wing as punishment for causing so much damage earlier. He actually is able to fix it up, with the help of the R5 droid that it turns out he was able to repair. He is successful in fixing the starfighter, but the Jawas are now more interested in a TIE Advanced being hauled off by scavengers. The Jawa protagonist hops into his X-Wing and uses it to steal the TIE fighter from the scavengers. He tries to fly it back but crashes the X-Wing, but the TIE fighter is perfectly fine, and the other Jawas celebrate his victory. It's pretty cute. Next is a really short comic called Phantasmagoria by Baron Udia. It goes over the thoughts in Vader's head as Luke is being electrocuted by Darth Sidious. This time he is able to save the ones he loves, and finally kills the Emperor. The next comic is Vader vs. R2 and 3PO by Millennium. It's the scene from Return of the Jedi where Luke turns himself in, only it's the two droids instead. Vader very seriously tells R2 that they meet again, at last, and now the circle is complete, while brushing C-3PO off to the side, of course. Vader tells R2 that they can end this destructive conflict with their combined power. R2 runs away, but Vader threatens that if R2 will not join the dark side, then perhaps this droid will. And then C-3PO runs away all frightened. But Vader follows him and says, R2 never told you what happened to your creator. And C-3PO replies, he told me you killed him. No, I am your creator. No! And then R2 and Vader both pull out a lightsaber, and they start dueling. But R2 slices through his life support unit, and Vader starts choking to death. C-3PO tries to run away again, and hits a wall and bounces off, causing him to accidentally knock Vader into the carbon freezing chamber. Cool! Yeah, clearly an Infinities comic, but I thought it was pretty funny. The final story is Dark Jedi by Yasushi Nirasawa. Apparently a Dark Jedi has stolen Grievous's lightsaber collection and escaped to the acidic world of Dika. But Grievous is such a badass that he decides to hunt her by himself. For whatever reason, this comic changes Grievous's appearance a lot. His body looks far more organic than normal, and it does look pretty cool. I feel like they could probably reuse this design with someone else. Anyway, he spots the Dark Jedi, and it turns out that they are actually twin Dark Jedi. They begin to fight, but Grievous is somehow able to grab the blade of the lightsaber with his hand. The sisters try to flank Grievous, but it doesn't work. He jumps out from the underside of a cliff and disarms the girls, but the sabers land in the acid lake. To his annoyance, he shoos them away, now needing to start his saber collection all over again. Other than the design change for Grievous, and him having the ability to grab onto lightsabers, I could see this comic actually happening within the EU. Mostly, I would like to know more about the Dark Jedi twins, and what their deal is. But yeah, that's Star Wars Manga Black and Silver. Since the comic itself says it's Infinities, I don't necessarily think you have to own these for a complete EU timeline. They can just be fun stories to read. That said, I think a few of these could actually fit within the EU pretty well. Do you own these comics? Have you even heard of them before? Do you want to get them for yourself? Well, good luck, because they are either really hard to find in English, or they're really expensive. In my opinion, if Lucasfilm ever makes an Infinities omnibus, or something, then these mangas should absolutely be reprinted. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below.